everyone, it's Mono Sew Against the Grain. I'm going to be repairing one of the gears on my Singer Touch and Sew. It's a golden touch and sew and the model is 620. One of the common complaints about this kind of vintage machine is that Singer shifted from using metal gears to plastic gears in the late 60s. So this machine has a broken gear on the bottom. After 60 some odd years, it's not surprising that the plastic is giving out. And so I am going to open it up and replace the gear, and hopefully this video is helpful if you have this particular model of sewing machine, or it's helpful to inspire you to try a vintage sewing machine repair if you have one of your own at home. So one of the first and most important steps is to make sure that you disconnect the power from the machine. So I'm going to pull out the plug so there's no longer electricity running to it. And then this particular model has a plastic base, and then there's a cover underneath the machine as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up and remove the plastic base off the machine, and then I'll tip it back onto the back so we can take a look at the base plate of the machine as well. So normally you would have 4 separate feet that are screwed in and holding the base of the machine on. One of mine is missing, so I just have 3 feet. So I'm going to unscrew these, and then we'll be able to take a look at the inside of the machine. I'm going to use a screwdriver for this one because it's not really turning. So the only real tools that you need for vintage sewing machine repair are really just a variety of sizes of screwdrivers. I have a pair of pliers. I have a little bit of sewing machine lubricant so that I can put some onto the gear once I get it inside the machine. But a lot of the repairs that you're going to do are really just unscrewing, clamping, screwing back in, and kind of cleaning off as you go. So on the right hand side, you can see that the 2 white gears have been replaced in the past. They are much newer and are definitely replacement parts and not the original parts. On the left hand side, you can see both gears are this dark brown color, so they are the original gears from the 1960s when the machine was built. And I'm gonna move the knob a little bit so you can see that the gear that's horizontal on the left hand side, you can see where the teeth are missing and it doesn't turn. So there you can see that there's teeth broken off and that the gear doesn't move its partner gear as much as it's supposed to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start taking things off, and what I want to do is be able to remove this bar so that I can get this gear out in order to replace it. So I actually ordered a replacement gear from sewingpartsonline.com with super fast shipping. I got it in just a couple days after ordering it. So you can see that the new gear looks much like the ones on the right hand side and very different from the ones on the left. So that's another indication that the ones on the right were replaced at some point. So what I'm going to do, and this is kind of my go-to for sewing machine repair, is I just start unscrewing things in the most organized fashion that I can, so I can try and get an idea of how to actually get to this mechanism over here. So one of the first steps once you turn the machine upside down is to take this bracket that's covering the part of the electrical mechanism. So there's a screw that you just need to take out, and it's going to be a long screw that goes into the body of the machine. So once the screw comes out, the whole bracket will come out as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out the electrical plug from the outside of the machine and pull on the inside at the same time, and it'll just unhook. So we just want this loose, so we're just going to kind of move it down so it's just kind of free and dangling, because what we're going to actually do is we're going to take this rod that connects the 2 gears that are horizontal, and we're going to push it through the hole on the side of the machine so that we can get to this gear and replace it. So all 4 gears have a small set screw that you need to use an Allen wrench to loosen. So I loosened, there's 2 on this right horizontal gear, and then there's 1 on the left horizontal gear, which is the one that we're going to replace. So they've already been loosened enough that that they aren't clamped onto the rod. So what happens now is we're actually going to push this rod. We're going to grab it in the center of the machine and push it to the right through this gear out the hole on the right side of the machine that we just made by moving the electrical apparatus. So we're just going to push, 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 and then what happens is that the gear that we want to replace on the left-hand side is now free because the rod is not in it. So we're just going to kind of wiggle it out, and you can see where the teeth have broken on one side of the gear. So this is what was causing the machine to look like maybe the timing was off, is that we have some broken teeth on this old gear. So the two replacement gears are in good shape, and this old gear is in good shape, so we're not going to worry about replacing those. We're just going to worry about replacing this one that's got broken teeth. So you can see the new gear looks almost exactly the same, very similar shape. It obviously doesn't have any broken teeth, and it has a very similar structure on the back with the set screw that's going to be exactly the same as the one that we're replacing. So similar to the way that we got the broken gear out, we're going to want to look on the rod, and there's going to be a little indent on one part of the rod. So what we can do to make life a little easier, because the set screw from this gear is going to hold on to that little indent, is we can use a marker or something to just make a little line on the rod for where the indent is, so when we slide it in, it's a little bit easier to see what we're doing. So if we hold the new gear with the set screw towards us and we kind of wiggle it in to where it's going to be permanently, if we hold it so that the set screw is facing us, we can slide the rod back in, keeping this line in the same line as the set screw. You know, I'm going to make that a little bit longer so it's easier to see when we slide it in a little further. So we'll put the new gear in with the set screw facing us. And then we'll slide it in with the black Sharpie mark facing us as well. And so we want to push it in until this is more flush with this right hand gear. Let's see if I can get this to cooperate. So what I did is I just kind of tapped on that a little bit until it was pretty close to flush with the right hand gear, and so then we know that it's inside this left gear as well. So now what we need to do is take our Allen wrench and to tighten all of these set screws again so that the gears are tight in the machine. So now that we have all the Allen screws tightened on the gears, we're going to take some Singer lubricant and we're going to put it onto the teeth of the new gear, just kind of in the general area, so that it can have some lubrication. And now we're going to hook the electrical back up by pushing these together and making sure this is pushed out through the hole as much as we can. And then we're going to put this bracket back on, and it kind of snaps in around everything, and then we just use the screw to close it back up. So now that we've replaced the gear, we want to go ahead and turn the hand wheel to make sure that everything moves the way we want it to. And it does. We can see all four gears are moving. and the needle is moving up and down in the machine. So a couple of things to remember is when you're tightening the Allen screws on any of the gears that you remove, make sure that you don't over tighten them. I did that the first time, and then it made everything kind of shift around as I was using it, and the motor casing was moving up and down and the needle bar was stuck. So just make sure that you don't over tighten any of the Allen screws. Another thing to remember is by replacing the gear and moving this bar around, it's likely that you're going to knock the timing out. So the way that I fixed the timing when it stopped working after I did the repair is I loosened the Allen screw on this horizontal gear, and I just kind of realigned it with this gear by one little tooth, and then I would move the hand wheel, and if I could hear the needle hitting any of the bobbin casing, I would kind of turn it another tooth. And it was just kind of hit or miss, and I just experimented until I got it to a place that the timing was back to where I wanted it to be. But just something to keep in mind if you need to do this repair, that you're probably going to have to fix the timing as well. And this is the way that I got it to work, but there's probably a ton of other ways to do it. So that's the end of the repair, and hopefully that was helpful for anybody that has a Singer Touch and Sew, or at least inspires you to try and do some of your own repairs. If you have a vintage sewing machine, it's really rewarding to be able to take care of a piece of history and really keep your vintage machine up and running. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful.